Hello. Thanks so much for joining the Live Abroad for a Month show. Do you daydream of jet setting to different countries, staying in luxurious hotels or villas? But maybe you have more of a beer budget and it doesn't quite cover those champagne dreams. Then you're going to want to stick around for this show. I am joined by Miles and Points expert Alli Wrighte, and we're going to chat about how to get started into travel hacking and start earning free travel fast. How and when to book using points, how to maximize those points, and some mistakes to avoid. So, Alli, welcome. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
I would love to share a little bit for you to share a little bit about yourself and how you got into travel hacking.
Yeah, of course. So my name's Alli. When I graduated from college, I had a good amount of student loan debt, and it kind of I went down this rabbit hole of how can I pay off this debt. I got really deep into Dave Ramsey, and those circles kind of interact with the travel hacking circles a little bit because when you're trying to pay off debt, you want to take down your expenses to as little as possible, but I still wanted to enjoy my life. I still wanted to travel. I still wanted to do the fun things while I was young. So I kind of got dabbling into travel hacking, and I opened up my first credit card, or my first travel credit card, which was the Capital One Venture card, it's a great card, and you can basically erase your travel purchases. So I thought this is so cool. Let me book my flight on this credit card and then erase the purchases with my points. So from there, I kind of dive deep into travel hacking because I thought it was so cool and I wanted to continue traveling without having to pay for it. So here I am today. I travel internationally multiple times a year for nearly free, and then I help my community on Instagram do the same.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for joining me. And if those of you watching are new to me, my name is Susie Chow. I help professionals live abroad for a month or more, even with a job, a house, pets, kids, and a crazy busy schedule. Before I did this, I started my career in management consulting. So I was traveling Monday through Thursday, doing the road warrior thing. And that's how I got into miles and points. I mean, before that, I knew pretty much zero. I think I maybe had one loyalty airline account for my first trip abroad, which was when I studied abroad in college. But with the experience traveling frequently, I learned a lot about this world and travel hacking very fast. Although I will say that doing the frequent traveling, and this kind of leads into probably our first topic, which is busting the myths that you need to be a frequent traveler in order to get the free flights and the free hotel stays. And you know what, that is not true. And it actually takes way, way longer to get to the free travel. I felt like I was living in hotel rooms like half the week for years, and it would get me like 2 nights in a hotel every year. So it is a long slog. Definitely helps from a status perspective, but in terms of actually being able to get that, free or nearly free travel, it's a longer, much longer road than what we're going to be talking about today. So before we get into that, I want to just do a quick pause. And if you are joining live or on the replay, just let us know, give us a little heart or maybe a little plain emoji in the comments so we know that you are joining. And at any point when we're talking, because some of this information might be totally new to you, put any comments put any questions in the comments below as well, because we want to make sure that those questions are answered. Even if you are watching the replay, we can always just go and start a DM or something, make sure that that question is answered. So please, just let us know if you're joining live in the comments, give us a heart emoji, whatever, and we're going to get into it. So as I kind of talked about, you don't need to be a frequent traveler to get into travel hacking. Because like I said, it can take forever. So we're talking about a much faster way. Alli, I'd love to hear your perspective on, you mentioned that you got into travel hacking with credit cards.
Mhm.
And, how are you earning miles and points without being a road warrior?
Right. Yeah. So I'm definitely not a road warrior. I did spend some time as a consultant years ago, and I got to get some status, like you said, with Marriott and I think United at the time. Those have since gone away. But my strategy now is to create a portfolio of cards that really hit on your big spending topic or big spending categories. So dining, restaurants, gas. If you can build out a portfolio of cards that really hit on those spending categories and earn you points or bonus points in those spending categories, you're going to accelerate your points accumulation. Another thing that I really suggest is a couple times a year, or even as few as one time a year, open up a credit card to get the sign up bonus. Those are going to be your big bang wins to get a lot of points really quickly. So a credit card company like Chase or Amex will come out and say, if you open this card and you spend a certain amount of money, usually it's anywhere between like 3,000 or sometimes I've seen as high as 15,000, but somewhere in between. If you spend that amount of money within a certain time frame, usually it's like 3 months, then you get a big bonus, a big sign up bonus of points. And so really those sign up bonuses are going to be the big bang that you're going to get a lot of points out of, and then you can book a trip with those points. So your day-to-day spending will go on those credit cards. You shouldn't be spending more than you can or should spend. You should be
Absolutely.
spending just your normal everyday expenses on those credit cards to earn the sign up bonus.
Fantastic. So is that what you would recommend then as like a first step, is kind of to take a look at those categories of your
Mhm.
spending? Where are you spending the money, and what card fits kind of within that to give you the most bang for your buck? So if, let's say, you dine out a lot, then you want to find a card that gives you extra points in that particular category, for example.
Right. And then it doesn't have to be complicated. I know some things that I have a card that I use for my gas, a card I use for groceries and dining, and then a card for like miscellaneous. So in my head, I'm only keeping track of really 3 cards. You don't have to make it complicated. You don't have to have a million different categories. Just kind of in your head, if I know I'm going to a restaurant, I'm going to use this particular card. And then that 1, 2 times a year, however you're more comfortable, or maybe it aligns with your goals of how many points you want, you'll open up a new credit card to get that sign up bonus.
Yeah, yeah. And actually, that's another myth too that a lot of people have is, oh, if I'm going and signing up for new credit cards all the time, that's going to hurt my credit score. And that's actually the opposite of true. If you want to touch on that a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest myth that I see about credit card points and miles and travel hacking, is that it hurts your credit score. In reality, it helps your credit score. Ever since starting to travel hack, my husband and I have been towards that upper 700, 800 point, and our credit score has just gone up ever since. So what that's actually doing in the back end is the more credit cards you open, the bigger credit limit you're going to have. And so therefore, your credit utilization, which makes up, I think it's 20 or 30%, I'd have to double check, it makes up a big portion of your credit score. Your credit utilization will be really low. So that'll help your credit score go up. You'll also have a new account on your credit score. So your credit score is really influenced by how many accounts you have. So in reality, if you're paying your cards off in full every month, that's a baseline to get into points and miles. You have to be paying your cards off in full every month. Then your credit score will continue to go up.
Absolutely. Well, that's really helpful because I hear that a lot.
Mhm.
And I think that you brought up a good point too about like whatever you're comfortable with. And I know that there are some like limits that you don't want to go past, but I think for most people watching, if they see, for example, a big sign up bonus, that because credit cards also, they do like extra sign up bonuses during certain periods of the year. So you'll see these like promotions, and that's where following people like you, Alli, are going to be so helpful for just being aware that, hey, this particular credit card is doing like an extra bonus for a limited time. So this is a good opportunity to essentially get more points for no additional effort. So that's, I think, really, really helpful to understand too, is that there's some credit cards that are going to be more advantageous to get versus others. I mean, I think it's kind of aligning, like you were saying, your goals and like your big spending categories, and then lining that up with a credit card that may be having an extra bonus going on. So one that I just learned about from you, and some other, there's no shortage of people talking about miles and points. So if this is new to you, we've just opened up a whole new world for you. But one that I just got was the Chase Inc. It's a business credit card, and that right now, I think it's still going on, has 100,000 point sign up bonus for spending 8,000 within 3 months. So again, that is a business card. And real quick, this is something that I think is probably like definitely not the 101 level, but like the 102 or 103 level, is that if you have any, even if you are not a full business, in what most people would consider, but if you're like selling something on like Poshmark or Etsy or whatever, something that would qualify as a business, even if it isn't, it could be very much a side hustle, you could still qualify for that business credit card. Obviously, you would want to be spending the amount that you would need to qualify for those extra sign-up bonus points. So that, it all depends on what you're comfortable with, but that's very much a side note, a bit of a tangent there. I think that for most of you watching, you'll probably want to be just focusing on personal credit cards, and just watching out for some of those extra sign-up bonuses, because for most it's like a 20,000 extra bonus. And I guess just to give, this is probably a good segue into point valuation, and we're throwing out like 100,000 points for people who aren't into travel hacking at all. That means nothing. Like what does that actually equate to in what you could get for that 100,000 points, for example? So I'd love to hear your perspective on just bringing some reality, I guess, into these random, thousands of points here and there. Like, what does that mean?
Yeah. I know when I have to remind myself that I need to make sure that when I say you get 100,000 points, I provided almost a dollar value with it. And in reality, you can't provide an exact dollar value with it because it'll fluctuate. But my general rule of thumb is if you should be getting at least 1 cent per point. So the easy way to calculate that is if you have 100,000 points, move the decimal over 2 times, and that should equal at least $1,000 worth of travel. Where you'll get $1,000 worth of travel is if you redeem the points within the travel portal. So there's a travel portal, Chase, Amex, Capital One, they all have travel portals, and you can use your points to buy travel. It's a set static point ratio. Depending on the bank, it's either like 1 cent per point. Some will give up to 1.5 cents per point. But no matter what, you're going to pay the exact same static ratio. But where you get a lot of outsized value and a huge value, and where I really encourage my followers to do this, is you should be able to transfer your points from the bank, from Chase, Amex, Capital One, to some of their transfer partners. So each of the credit card company banks have established strategic partnerships with airlines and hotels. Each of them usually have about a dozen up to maybe 20 different partnerships. So you'll be able to now transfer your points from Chase to somewhere like Hyatt or Southwest or United. And where you get a lot of value is now you're going to be using your points in Chase, Southwest, or Hyatt and paying their evaluation of how many points it should be to redeem that travel. So a good example I like to give is if you have a $100 hotel room in the portal, it's probably going to cost you 10,000 points. But you might get it in Hyatt for actually 5,000 points. So you're going to make your points go double the length, double the distance. So learning the transfer partners, and you can quickly Google it, say, who does Chase transfer to? Who does Amex transfer to? Is really going to be a key strategy for redeeming your points a little bit further. I know it sounds complicated, but trust me, the first time you figure it out, the first time you do it, you're going to be like, wow, I missed out on all these.
What have I been doing my whole life? Yeah.
Yeah, so it'll be the same type of situation. I always say, find the flight or the hotel in one of your transfer partners. Make sure they have availability. Make sure you understand how many points it's going to cost you, and then transfer your points.
Yes.
Don't ever transfer your points speculatively, because
Yes.
you might transfer them and then it's a one-way street. Once you transfer them out, the points are stuck there. Not to say you won't use them in the future, but always make sure you have a plan for your points before transferring them out. That was a long-winded way of explaining.
No, that's very, very clear. And I think that's like, if you take away nothing from this, is don't use the portal to book your travel. Because if I put my travel advisor hat on, the other aspect or advantage to transferring your points to the partner itself is that you are then making a direct booking. So it's like you're paying in, cash, or, like the specific, well, you are paying in like the points for that particular airline or hotel. So if something happens, plans change, some emergency accident happens, it's going to be way easier to handle that cancellation or trip interruption if you are making a direct booking with the airline or hotel. Because if you are using the portal, which, and I've told clients this so many times, it's like, it's easier on the front end because you're just like searching and you're saying, oh, that looks great, book, no additional work. But if things go wrong, then you're not dealing directly with the airline. You're dealing with like a third party online travel agency, and you're subject to their customer service. If you call up the airline directly, they're going to be like, sorry, this isn't booked with us. It's, booked through whatever agency the portal that you're using is attached to. So it's like, if something goes wrong, that's a whole mess. It's easier on the front end, but way harder on the back end. I never, ever, ever, ever recommend it if you have the ability to transfer to a partner.
Right.
So I think what might be helpful is to talk a little bit about kind of the most flexible. So if you're totally new to this and you're hearing us talk about like transfer partners, I totally recognize that that's a bit overwhelming. I think a lot of you listening probably have like a baseline level knowledge, but just tell us kind of, you mentioned like Capital One and I think Chase and Amex, like, would you say that those are kind of maybe the three options that are the most flexible in terms of, or have the biggest network of transfer partners? Because we're advising, if you're going to get a travel credit card, you want to transfer your points. So then when you make the decision of what card to get, you want to take a look at the transfer partners, and are those the types of companies, airlines, hotels that you would want to end up booking with based on, where you want to go and what you typically like to do when you travel.
Right. Yeah. So I'll backstep a little bit. So with opening a card, you've got really two options. Do you want to open a card that earns flexible points and the card is owned by the bank? So Chase, Amex, Capital One. I also should mention Citi as well. Or do you want to open a card that's associated and branded with a hotel or an airline? Or it would be just like opening up a Nordstrom card or a Max card. I wouldn't recommend it opening up a store card. But so you've got two different options. Do you want a branded card or do you want a non-branded card? I usually recommend, if you're starting out, start with a non-branded card, meaning it's a generic Chase card, a generic Amex card, generic Capital One card. Because what you'll get there is you'll start to earn flexible points that can be transferred out to any of their partners. If instead you open up a specific hotel card, you're only going to earn points for that specific hotel. And there's going to be a time and a place to open a specific hotel or airline card. If you're really loyal to them, they come with a lot of benefits like free check bags and some status. But you don't necessarily want to narrow yourself in on only their points, because then you only can book with them. So instead, I always recommend, if you're starting out, start with a non-branded generic card that earns flexible points, because I usually have customers or folks that are in two boats. They either say, I have this trip that I want to book, and this is on my mind, and this is the exact trip, here's when it is. Or they say, I don't know where I want to go, when I want to go, but I want to travel. In both of those scenarios, now you have access to all of the transfer partners to book your travel with. You're not going to be locked down to one airline or hotel. Another thing with that is a myth I'd like to bust, actually, is a lot of folks think to get into travel hacking is that you need to have a plan for travel. I definitely have a lot of bucket list items I want to check off. But I think the folks that don't necessarily have a plan on where they want to go and when they want to go, they're the best case to actually start travel hacking, because now you'll earn a bunch of points. And when you find out you want to go somewhere or you see a great deal that's going on, you're ready to book because you have the points ready. So think of it almost like a savings account for points that you can start to use or that you can use at the right time. Does that help answer your question?
Yeah. And I'm so happy though that you took a step back and talked about the branded cards, because a lot of people are, if they are loyal, and especially if you are a frequent traveler, and you are, for example, opening up a hotel card for your hotel stays that, you're paying with that card, you can earn a lot of points. So there are some advantages. I mean, honestly, the only two branded cards that I've ever gotten, one is Southwest, because I have earned the companion pass where one person flies free for years. And there's always it's usually kind of the beginning of the year, you'll see some opportunities to sign up for a credit card, again, pay or charge a certain amount in a certain time period to get that companion pass deal. And like that one I think is awesome. The other one that I have opened was Marriott, and I so we had our wedding at a Marriott branded hotel. I used the Marriott points, and we negotiated extra points in our contract. So that like totally took care of our honeymoon, and then some. So there are time and a place for branded cards. I'm very happy that you talked about that. But I would say for just getting started, getting one of the non-branded cards, Chase, Capital One, Amex, Citi, that have some flexible transfer partners, best bang for your buck. Highly recommend that. One thing I wanted to touch on too was, you were saying that you don't need a specific goal in mind. I mean, of course, if you have one, awesome. But I think that it takes a while. I mean, just thinking about the timeline, if you're just getting started now, and let's say you sign up today for a new credit card, you have to meet the minimum spending requirements. And, maybe that takes you 3 months to get the sign up bonus. Plus, you'll be getting points on all the charges that you're making throughout that time period too. So then, let's say 3 months down the line, you get your sign up bonus. Yay. Now you're looking at redeeming points. And I think that it's important to change the mindset when you're redeeming using points, especially when you're transferring those. Let's take maybe an airline. I think that's probably a good place to start. That's where if you, I don't know, in general, I think you get the most bang for your buck by redeeming your points for airlines, for flights. Because that's usually something people don't really want to pay, but it's a necessary expense to get to where you want to go. And I'd love to, hear your thoughts about like, when should you book using points if, let's say, you want to redeem for a flight in the future?
So most airlines will allow you to start booking award availability. Award availability is the term for booking a flight with points. They'll open up their award availability about 11 months in advance. The days will change a little bit depending on each airline, but let's say 11 months. So when they open up their calendar 11 months in advance, they're going to have the most available flights at the cheapest points price possible. So it would be advantageous to book at hopefully 11 months in advance. And as you get closer to the time of the flight, there's going to be less and less award availability because people like me and you and all the folks that are watching, they picked up those different flight options. And a lot of airlines will have a couple different seats priced at one point. And then once all those seats are bought, they move up to the more expensive point range. And then once those seats are bought, they keep moving up. So I really recommend if you can book about 11 months in advance, that would be great. Of course, booking anytime in advance. And I like to say that if you can get travel for free or really heavily discounted, I think it's still a win. So maybe you see these crazy influencers that get these amazing deals. And I like to think I get some of those amazing deals too, but you see them on the internet and you compare them to the points that you're going to book something with. Don't necessarily do that. I think that redeeming travel for free is still a win no matter what. So all this to say is if you can book 11 months in advance, great. If not, and it's going to be a little bit more expensive points wise, it's still a win.
Yeah, especially if you are looking to, let's say, go to Europe in the summer. You got to be booking those now. I mean, I have a client. She's flying a family of 4. She's got 2 daughters, and especially if you want premium cabins, she got one-way flights from New York to London on British Airways, and that's for I think the end of June next summer. And she was like, it was so hard to get those. I mean, and I talked to another family on Tuesday, same thing. Like, you got to kind of, it's not like you have to, if you don't see something immediately, keep checking. So the family I talked to on Thursday, they've got a family of 5. They're going to Spain next July. And, they kept checking like every so often. I mean, you don't need to be obsessive about it like every single day, but, if you have something specific in mind, the more flexible you are, the better. And usually the further in advance, that opens up some more flexibility, I think, for a lot of people. But it is a mindset shift for when you're using points. Like, the further ahead, the better, both from an availability standpoint and, the number of points that you can redeem for that will be lower than if you're trying to do something more last minute. So, right. There generally aren't like last minute deals on points. I mean, maybe, but that would be few and far between, and you have to be very flexible with that. So, if you do start looking at award availability for flights, for example, click around different days. If you do have flexibility, that's going to serve you so well. And, again, get the most bang or highest valuation for your buck using those points.
Yeah. I love to say, if you can be flexible on the timing, like maybe you don't fly out on a Friday night because that's when everybody else wants to fly. If you can fly out on a Wednesday, you can be flexible, and also be flexible on your location. So maybe you want to go to London, but actually you fly into Paris because that's the better option, and you might train into London. So follow the deal, not necessarily the destination, to get the most bang for your points.
Yes, very, very good advice. We do have a question about opening up credit cards. So if, let's say, you're going down a path of opening up multiple credit cards to get those sign-up bonuses, the question is, do you leave them open forever, or do you close them after a certain time? I think some of that's personal preference, but would love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, at the bare minimum, keep them open for 1 year. That'll keep you in good graces with the bank. If you close them in less than a year, they probably will get a little angry. They might take your points back. So keep it open a year. If the card has an annual fee, then start to evaluate after that year. Am I getting benefits out of this card that is justify the annual fee? If the answer is no, oftentimes you can downgrade the card. So you'll call them and say, I'm interested in downgrading this card to a no annual fee version of it. What the benefit of that is, instead of closing, is that you're going to keep that line of credit open, and that'll help your credit score continue, because now you'll have a longer credit history. But now you don't have to pay that annual fee. You'll get downgraded to a different card, but it's essentially like if you kept that card open forever. If that's not an option, if there's no option to downgrade to an annual fee, then you can close it. A lot of times I like to only open cards that I can see myself either keeping long-term, or I know there's an option to downgrade, because I don't love closing cards frequently. That might ding your credit score a little bit. But for cards that have no annual fee, I keep them open forever. Use them a couple times a year just to keep them active, but they're helping your credit score, and then you don't have to pay for it. It's a win-win in my mind.
Yeah. And you can always just give them a call and see if maybe they would waive that fee. I have had that happen, and they have said yes. So sometimes it definitely helps to just pick up the phone and ask very nicely. You're not going to get a yes every time, but worth a shot. And then, I think that if they say no, then that downgrade option is a really good backup plan. So that's very good advice. And if anybody watching this live or on the replay has questions, please pop them in the comments, because I will be monitoring that, and happy to connect you with Alli, which is a good segue then to kind of wrapping this up. And if people want to learn more, or potentially work with you, how do they get in contact with you, Alli?
I'm on Instagram and TikTok, but you can primarily find me on Instagram at Travel Hacking with Alli. And I'd love to contact with you guys. Thank you.
Awesome. And if you are interested in living abroad for a month or more, that's where you're going to want to talk with me. So just send me a DM if you're watching this on, LinkedIn or Facebook. If not, you can contact me also on Instagram at Carpe Diem Traveler. And I've got a special free roadmap call, 30-minute roadmap call. So if you are interested in exploring how you can travel for a month or more, I am going to talk to you and figure out together exactly when and how you can do it. Going to eliminate those roadblocks, like I said at the beginning, about, the house. What do I do with the house, or, school and pets? And of course, cost. Obviously, I think that this conversation definitely should help with that, and being able to find some ideas on how you can minimize those costs. But you would be surprised along those lines that the cost in general of traveling for a month, the way I suggested, kind of slow travel, finding a home base and traveling from there, is about the same as your general 1 or 2 week vacation. So I just suggest a swap. And if you can use additional points to get yourself there on a flight, or, maybe some hotels on the front and back end, you've got a very inexpensive trip. But please reach out to me if you have any questions and want to hop on a quick call with me. We can strategize, we can make it happen, so you can travel for longer than just a vacation, because those 1 or 2 week vacations until you retire, I just don't think are especially if you want more adventure in your life. So please reach out to either of us. Alli, thank you so much for joining me. This was such a good discussion. I hope everybody learned a lot, and you have a wonderful day.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Have a good one. Bye.
Bye.